Welcome to Miles from Home, brought to you by Pro Direct Running. My name's Harry Jones. I'm a trail runner from the UK. I live in Wales, usually racing in the ultra trail distances. I'm really fortunate, it's brought me all over the world. I've managed to race in some different parts of the globe, and it's been a really exciting journey. I started off as a track runner back in the day when I was very young, and raced track all the way up until I was 20. Leaving university, I didn't race for a long time, but then eventually I fell back in love with running a good few years later, but decided I wanted to run further. And that's very much the direction of this conversation that we've got for you today. I'll be talking to Andrew Douglas and Rachael Camp from the UK, both of them who specialise on the trails, in the mountains, and for Rachel's case, in the ultra distances. So we'll be talking around a few points today to discuss our ideas, some concepts that you might want to bring into training when it comes to maybe stepping up if you're looking to step up into ultra trail running, or even just a marathon or half marathon. There's some ideas in this conversation ranging from food, nutrition, all the way to training sessions and ways that you can implement it into your training. Before we get into it, just to let you guys know, we're going to be giving away a pair of HOKA Clifton 7s at the end of the show, so stick around to find out how you could be in for winning those. But right now, let's get into the conversation and let's get on the call with Andrew and Rachael. So let's just get started, guys. It's good to see you again. And Andrew, can you just tell us a little bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, I guess kind of just on tenterhooks in terms of like racing and with kind of a lot of uncertainty around what's going to happen in the near future, but getting out to really some properly socially distanced running, like kind of not meeting anyone for miles upon miles, but yeah, just trying to stay fit, stay healthy, and be ready to go at a second's notice type thing. Yeah.
No, that's cool, definitely. I mean, last year was a pretty big year for you with the World Mountain Running kind of series, I guess. I mean, those who are watching now, maybe fill them in with how last year went for you.
Yeah, so last year I took a sabbatical from work, so I managed to get about 14 months off. So I really just wanted to make kind of mountain running my focus for that time. So and I'd competed in the World Series before. I'd won it back in 2015, but last year there was going to be more races in the series, and including like one that was out in the States. So I just really wanted to kind of put my full kind of focus and intention into that. Obviously, like you say, kind of big highlight was winning the World Cup series. That was fantastic, and winning the Snowdon race, which was like the kind of home leg for the series, was it was fantastic as well. So so I really kind of timed my sabbatical pretty well because otherwise it would have been a bit of a disaster next year. So,
you would have been twiddling your thumbs a bit.
So that was it basically. Yes, that was my I'm kind of focused now on kind of mountain running, and this year I was supposed to kind of try to go a bit kind of longer into kind of marathon type kind of distances. Obviously that kind of hasn't happened with the kind of restrictions in place, but hopefully have some kind of part of a season left and see if I can get in that kind of longer trail type race.
Yeah, definitely. It's a strange situation, isn't it? I mean, we've been having some good weather as well recently, at least down here in Wales. And just lots of good training, lots of good time to focus on training and just getting back into a good routine. But there's no races to kind of test at the moment. So it's a strange one. And Rachael, you've got quite an interesting background with running. Maybe tell everyone about your running journey.
So I started sort of properly running in about 2015, I think. I just decided one day to plot like an 18-mile run and just go and do it.
Just 18 miles.
Off the back of like nothing really. I took no water, no food, nothing. Wow. And obviously at that time, that was like super far for me. I couldn't even believe I'd done it. From there, the time was just so right for me to then start increasing things. And I wasn't drawn to races or people or anything like that. It was just all so kind of natural for me, just to be outside in nature. I'd put like my pack on and I would just, just go for like a couple of hours. But over time, sort of the rest of that sort of year was just kind of increasing distance. And I booked my first marathon, which was actually Trail Marathon Wales.
A brilliant race, yeah.
Yeah, so I kind of did that, and then I had my first kind of proper ultra booked for 2016, but I upped it to the 50-mile race because I'd already ran 30 on my own. So that was kind of how I got into it. But I think when I look back, I ran a couple of half marathons, Surrey Slog and the South Downs half. I just remember finishing those and thinking, how... I remember actually my dad was there and I was like, how the hell did they do that twice? Like running that far was just like I couldn't even understand. And then I stopped running. So I kind of look back to then and I'm like, that part of me has always been in there, like back to my army days as well. I've always kind of been drawn to like really hard things, whether that's now or like in my past. A lot of the choices that I make are like involve pain and being able to work through things, and then I did 50 miles, and then on the finish line for that, the race director, I was like, do you have a 100-mile race? And he was like, you might want to think about doing something smaller first. And I was like, no, I'll do that. So the following year I did their 100-mile race. So I went from 50 to 100. And then I've done 4 100-mile distances since.
That's fantastic. Quite the journey. That's awesome. I really like what you said there about wanting to you set your new bar of what is hard and what is far. The more you run, the longer you've been within the running kind of game almost. And I think that's something that we all experience. I think that's obviously the main discussion of topic that we're looking for today is, what is running further for us? And it's for a lot of runners, that's something that you can just kind of build upon as you get more and more used to the miles and used to that experience and chasing that kind of drive and passion that we all have to explore a little bit more. So Andy, you discussed that you were looking to kind of step up on the trails this year to go up into more of the kind of marathon distance. Well, a bit of context, I think, obviously you can tell everyone a little bit more than me, but with the World Mountain Running Champs, those kind of series of races, Snowdon races, is it like 16K and about 1,000 meters of climbing up and down Snowdon? So even though obviously you run far and you run up some big climbs in the mountains, what made you kind of want to step up into that kind of trail marathon distance this year?
To be honest, my experiences from running Sears Now, which is a kind of trail type mountain race in Switzerland. It's about 31K and it has about 2,200 meters, I think, descent in it. But there's also a lot of descent in that as well. So that kind of took me about 2 hours 35 to 2 hours 40 minutes, kind of the both times that I did that. And I loved that race. It's been like one of my favorite races, and I think it really helped as well that both times have gone really well for me. But it's I guess it's the kind of, apart from a couple of road marathons that I've done, it's the one kind of like trail mountain type race where I've had to really think about like nutrition and feeling like during the race and properly thinking as well about pacing and kind of how I approach that, because I think like with the shorter races it's really intense and you kind of just you're just in that race mindset,
just kind of redlining it.
And I think like I think the attraction of the longer races is it kind of there's different elements to kind of think about, but also it's a bit more relaxed. Like certainly kind of at the start, and then when you're running, you can think of kind of other things. It's not just being in the kind of moment in the kind of race type thing. And I think like going further is something that I definitely want to explore now that I've had a good few years of running the kind of shorter, sharper distances.
Yeah, I'm quite excited to see you get to do more of those longer races when they're kind of back on, because with the experience that you have with those short, sharper races, it just, like you were saying there, you just kind of feel like you can relax into the race a little bit more with that little bit of extra distance. Whereas, yeah, someone like myself now is used to those longer 100K plus races. Going down to the marathon, for me, initially that would feel like, a marathon trail race feels like, wow, this is really intense. So it's always funny because the perspective always shifts no matter where your head is at and where your training is at with the experience you've had at the time. Is that something you think about, Rachel, when you're on those kind of long 50, 100-mile races? Do you like that standing on the start line, knowing that there's time to go through all those processes in the race?
As soon as I cross that start line, that's it. I can just chill, do my thing, deal with the things that come up as and when they come up, and just look forward to getting into that kind of pain cage sort of bit that we all, I think, most people who run those distances, it's inevitable, and you get there, you're not going to run a race that far and not feel anything. But the week before is all visualization, just nervous, just what if this happens, what if that happens. But I think it's normal.
Yeah, I think that's it. It's definitely more of a, for myself, that's something that I feel as well. It's just a total process. There's a lot of things to think about, and it's enjoyable having that time, like you say, in the weeks leading up to visualizing, going through the preparations, and anticipating those hard patches that you're going to have in such a long race. And you can't anticipate everything. There's a lot of surprises that come up, but you can prepare for a lot of different outcomes, which really help you at some point within that race. I know that for myself within UTMB last year. I felt really slow, really didn't enjoy myself for the first half of that race, which is a long time, psychologically as well. So I think mentally that was something that I know in the future I need to work towards, in those longer races, is just holding it together mentally as well, because you start to tell yourself all those kind of stories about I'm not good enough, I didn't train hard enough, all this stuff. And then once you kind of get over that funk, then you can really push through to the other side. But it's a lot of sensations, a lot of feelings that you don't necessarily get in a half marathon kind of trail race or anything like that. Together, which makes it so much more exciting too. So it's awesome because you guys are both kind of on different perspectives almost of the kind of long races that we see on the trails. So we've got yourself, Rachel, with your long ultra stuff, and then yourself, Andy, who've done some pretty serious mountain races and some very long stuff, but you're looking to step things up as well. How would you say, if we imagine that there's some people watching this now and maybe they're doing, their 5Ks, their 10Ks on the roads, and they're thinking about stepping up into these longer races. So maybe they're aiming a trail marathon or a trail half marathon. What kind of training do you think maybe they should be thinking about adding into their training plan if they're doing most of their training maybe just on local road loops right now? What do you reckon, Andy?
I know it's kind of difficult for some people who maybe live in kind of more kind of suburban kind of areas to really, especially during these times, to get out to like the open spaces and the trails. But I think if you can, then obviously that's going to help a lot. I think if you're looking to kind of move up in distance, then you got to kind of start thinking about, okay, what am I doing on my kind of long Sunday run? Do I need to kind of maybe up the mileage and the time a bit more, and then kind of compensate that with kind of thinking about fueling, then kind of taking on board some more kind of liquid and and other things like energy gels. I mean, that's the way I'm kind of approaching my transition to the longer stuff. Like I've like my coach has been giving me kind of weekend sessions where I would do like a really long hill rep session on the Saturday, and coupled with like kind of a long warm down and long cool down, and that would be quite kind of high mileage, and then going on to kind of 3 hour plus Sunday run up in the hills. So again, it's all about accumulating that ascent over a longer distance. So if that's what kind of other people's kind of focus is looking to go towards that kind of distance, then I think something like that is going to help. I mean, you guys know yourselves, it's I guess it's your kind of ability to train on tired legs is the kind of key to ultra running. Is you're in a constant state of tiredness, kind of just trying to get those legs moving and power those legs up the kind of mountains and the hills. So yeah, that would be kind of the advice I would give.
Yeah, I really like what you're saying there about kind of stimulating the body, giving yourself those speed sessions, those quality work still, but making it applicable for the race that you have. So yeah, if you are living in the city or you don't typically run many hills, but you've signed yourself up for a hilly half marathon or trail race, you need to think about adding in those hills if possible. It might be really difficult if you're in the middle of London, but there's ways to think about that. There's ways to find any climb you can, really, just to try and replicate that kind of muscle recruitment that you're going to be getting in a race. And then, like you say, doubling that up with a longer day than the next day where you're running on tired legs and things might be a little bit sore, but you're not really thinking about running on that maximum pace that day. You're just getting used to running on very tired legs. It is just a case of getting used to that volume, that time on feet that you're going to have to be doing on race day. And as long as you then get to the race and run sensibly and don't go sprinting off the front and kind of
walk as well, there's
and gas yourself, just
so
take
much,
it easy.
You have to run the whole thing, especially trail races. And the longer you go, I've swept a lot of trail ultras, like at the back, so I've experienced a lot of the people at the back and in the middle, and it's so much, so diverse, so many different levels of fitness and ability and training. Some people just rock up and they're like done no training, but they know they can walk a lot of it because it's so fun. They've got time to walk and they've got their poles and they've got a flask in their backpack. And, it's like the longer it goes, the more you can, set your own kind of limits as to how well you want to do.
Yeah. So I've got a train going past. No, that's a really good point to make as well, that there's trail races that are just, maybe along a tow path along a canal for 50 miles. And then there's trail races where you're going to be in the mountains accumulating loads of vertical and descent on very rocky technical trails. And those are two very different styles of running and racing altogether. And yeah, for that second one where you're in the mountains, you will be doing a lot of hiking. Even, the guys at the front in UTMB, believe even Paul Capel last year, even though he looked like he was sprinting the whole race, you're doing a lot of hiking out there. You're not just running hard and running fast all the time, or running even. So you do just need to sometimes just figure that out, have a good look at the race profile that you're running and make sure that you are running the style of running in your training the best you can to what is going to be appearing on race day. And sometimes that just means going to the mountains and just hiking around for a few hours and running what you can and not getting stressed about it. If you've got, a 20% plus incline, we're not all going to be sprinting up that. We're going to be just taking our time hiking up it, saving the legs for later in the race. And it is a massive learning process. I'm sure, you can agree, Rachel, when you ran your first ultra, it was a bit of a shock to the system in those final miles. It's tough, but then the next time you do it, it's like the body remembers and it gets easier every time. Still hurts, but Andrew, you discussed that you do some speed work, some hill reps. So you mentioned a little bit briefly what one of those sessions might look like. Could you give like a little bit more of an idea of what those sessions look like for you? Maybe leading into one of your typical mountain races?
Yeah, sure. We kind of, I suppose kind of sessions really, they depend on what kind of race you're aiming for and what kind of season it is as well, because especially with the kind of hill type sessions, you don't want to be out in the hillside over winter when the conditions aren't so great up in Scotland. So we kind of build our kind of training kind of schedules around kind of what kind of season is and what I'm kind of aiming for. But yeah, certainly in terms of in terms of like kind of summer racing, like now, I would be doing like longer hill rep sessions. So we're talking maybe like kind of 4 by 8 minute kind of uphill reps, and then because where I live in Edinburgh, we don't have particularly high hills. I then have to do some kind of like downhill running to be able to get enough like ascent in. So there is a kind of lot of kind of going up and down the same path. But really, it's just about trying to kind of cover as much ascent as I can in the session, but also kind of running kind of fairly steadily downhill as well. So you've got that kind of transition from running kind of hard downhill to then running back uphill again, which is something that, experience a lot in the kind of shorter races, but you'd also experience as well in your kind of ultra type races where there's a lot of kind of ascent and descent. So you've got to get your legs kind of used to what it feels like to kind of then run back uphill, because that's really where the big challenge is. I mean, I'm sure you'll kind of know what the jelly leg kind of feeling feels like, and I don't think you feel it. I don't think you feel it any kind of more than you do when you're kind of running hard downhill and then having to run back uphill again. It's it can be pretty hard. So trying to do those kind of types of sessions that are kind of related to the types of races that you're going to aim for is something that I would definitely kind of promote. And like you were saying as well with the kind of speed type sessions, that's something. I mean, when you talk speed, like for me, that's kind of like relative speed. That's kind of like 10K type speed. I've long since lost my 1500 meter type pace.
Me too. Don't worry about that. I can't believe it.
So it's kind of like interval sessions where you're doing like kilometers, say like I don't know, 5 to 10 kilometer reps, or you're kind of doing 5-minute reps or something like that. That's going to help just maintain that kind of leg speed kind of all year round, which is something that you're going to need no matter what the distance.
Yeah, no, real good points. I think it's easy when you get into ultra racing, all those super long races, and like you say, it's relative to whoever you are as a runner. If you are, and as well, if you're on like a kind of a time, if you don't have a lot of time for training within the week, it can be really valuable and a little bit more kind of, you could say, like training cost effective to have a faster session in the week if you're not someone who typically does an interval session or a tempo run or something like that. Definitely worth thinking about adding that into your running routine, even if you are experienced with it and you've not done anything like that before. It can be really rewarding, because I know that I fell into that trap many years ago, even coming from a background when I knew how important sessions were from a track running background. You kind of just, if you have the time for it, you kind of just get into the mindset of more is better. So you just kind of just start chasing high volume and getting as much time in the mountains as you can, which is definitely going to make you stronger in some respects, but you can't underestimate the power of doing a quality session where you really get the lungs and the heart working as well. And so nutrition, eating on the run, we've talked a little bit about this already, about how important that can be when you start to go longer. How do you approach that when you're racing, within your training, Rachel? What kind of stuff do you take with you on a long run?
So when I first started increasing my miles, the first thing I did was bought a hydration vest, because I remember, I specifically remember the run. I was like, I needed to bring something on this one. So I bought a vest and I took water, and the first thing I started taking were like dates and trail mix. And I think I also took like a Cliff Bar. And that was like the first time that I had ever taken food with me on a run. But I felt quite comfortable with running and eating, or I'd stop and look at a view and eat and then carry on, or I'd take like a sandwich or something like just in my bag. And then it wasn't until I started running sort of races where time in checkpoints was limited, and you're having to like eat fast, not faster, but you're having to like be more methodical about your food. But the thing with ultramarathon running and nutrition is no race is the same. I might have, boiled potatoes are like a massive go-to to me now, just cold potatoes with salt on. But some people like crispy bacon, some people like burgers, some people, will eat every hour and they're really strict. And
you do need to try lots of different things, because you might find that something sells in the stomach a little bit more than other, especially with those kind of long 100-mile ultras. You can't just do it on gels or drink mixes.
Some do.
Some guys do, and yeah, I can just about personally get away with it for about 12 hours. And then after that, it's just, there's a hole in my stomach, and I'm just sick of it, and I can't get any of that stuff down anymore. So yeah, you do need to think about some more kind of whole food approach. Like you're saying, potatoes, that's a really, really tasty option.
They go down so well for
me.
Yeah, really well.
Rice balls, something that I use with a little bit of salt. So for UTMB, I was having rice balls, which are really easy on the stomach, and just could turn to mush. So they're just like a gel anyway, but a bit more filling on the body. But yeah, it is funny, like you're saying, people do all sorts of crazy things out there, and some people can get away with absolutely anything. And the amount of calories that some people can take in drastically is different from one person to the next. I've heard stories of, I won't name the runner, but one of the kind of elite ultra runner guys, on one of his training runs leading into UTMB last year, he was just trying to really push his limits just to see exactly where his stomach would kind of handle it, and then where that turning point would be, where he'd be throwing his guts up. So I think he got to something like 8 gels in an hour, and then then that was a bit of a messy run for him, I think. But so it's interesting, because it's such a kind of when it gets to a competitive level, it's a deciding factor between maybe, you know, on the start line, the runner might have better credentials than you, but if you have a better race where you've able to handle more nutrition and able to eat that little bit more and keep your energy at a better level throughout the race and don't bonk essentially, then you're going to have a much better race than the guy next to you. And we've seen that in quite a few ultras over the years. And what about like your ideas on kind of for both of you, I guess, you know, the running community as a whole? You know, running is obviously, I think it's, you know, it's a sport that is definitely growing more and more popular. Again, I think we're kind of within another running boom now. I think there's a lot more interest around it, especially with what the world as a whole has been going through these last few months. Well, you know, however many months it's been now. You know, it's obviously an easily accessible area for people to really look after their fitness, and a lot of people realizing how important their fitness is. You know, do you think it's great in the sense that it is something that we can do wherever we are? I mean, it's an isolated sport, but do you guys kind of, what about you, Andrew, up there in Scotland? Do you take part in, you know, do you have a good training group that you train with? Do you kind of enjoy that community aspect as well as the kind of loneliness of the long distance runner side of things?
Yeah, absolutely. It's an interesting point, because they say as kind of endurance runners, I think we typically do isolate ourselves a lot, and it is a lot about kind of getting that individual kind of mind space and that kind of and switching off from the real world when you're out on the kind of run, but also you feel like you're included in part of a community that's of like-minded people, which I think is really important as well. And I mean, in terms of like in the training groups, but like where I stay in Edinburgh, I'm kind of quite fortunate that there's kind of quite a large like student population, but also like kind of young professionals as well that we kind of have a training group with, that we do kind of like interval type sessions. And I'd say with the kind of hill running aspect of my training, that's probably more solitary. I rarely find anyone who wants to do the kind of sessions that I'm doing, which is fine, which is okay. I really enjoyed the inclusive kind of nature of distance running, and like I say, kind of just meeting kind of like-minded people who, you know, just want to kind of go out there and achieve something for themselves, and push their bodies to their limits, and feel good about that.
No, I agree. It is I think that's the awesome thing about the sport, is that it doesn't matter what level someone's running at, and you see them working hard, or, you know, you're within that kind of community group aspect, whether you're doing a session or whether you're just at a race, as Rachel was saying, and you're kind of just looking to cover the miles over a long race together and just enjoy that experience. You know, running can be such an inspiring sport for that, for whoever the runner is, and, you know, for the elites to with the ultra races. I think that's something that we really see, is that you'll have elites at the finish line who maybe finished, you know, hours before other people, and that's just because that's what they want to do within the race. They want to race hard and get to that finish line fast. But you got the people who've come in and still covered the same distance, and we all have as much respect for each other, and all as inspired with each other's efforts out there. And it doesn't matter how fast you're going, really. It's just you enjoying the sport in the way that you want to enjoy it. And that's something I definitely take away from the sport, is I enjoy hearing what running means and how they run, you know, in terms of how they look at running within their lives, because we all look at it in different ways, and you can learn a lot from each other in that aspect. What about you, Rachel? You mentioned that you kind of do a lot of stuff on your own. Do you get out on any kind of group runs, or have any running friends that you can drag up into the mountains, unlike Andrew?
When I first did my first event, it just opened up a whole new world for me. Just seeing that there's like all these other people who want to do the same thing, and that's when I started doing more work at the back and helping other people. But then once I've got a race that I want to do, that I want to kind of be a little bit competitive in, I'm on my own.
So you like being on your own, doing these huge runs, but you're obviously inspiring others through your efforts there, which is maybe motivating them, you know, from a distance, which is awesome. Part of maybe Strava, social media, or just, you know, being at these races and talking to other runners, is that the kind of effect that we can have on other runners just by doing what you do, you know, even though you might not know the person, you might not even share it publicly or whatever, that word gets out and it inspires other women, other men, you know, other people, other runners who are new to the sport to give it a try and to get out there and to try these longer races. And that's why everyone's story is important, I think, within the running space. That's awesome. Cool. So a question to both of you, I guess we'll start with Andy. What are your kind of go-to training shoes at the moment with HOKA?
Yeah, at the moment, I'm a big fan of the Carbon X's. I do a lot of my kind of day-to-day kind of road type running on them, and I just find them just so comfortable to run in, and they just kind of give you that kind of extra, I think, propulsion as well, kind of going forwards. And I really like them. I think because after a hard session, when, you know, your kind of legs are a bit kind of sore and you've got that run the next day and your kind of muscles are kind of a bit achy, then you just need something that's kind of a bit more cushioned, a bit more kind of supportive. So I really like those, like along with the Cliftons as well. I mean, I've been wearing the Cliftons a lot longer, obviously, than the Carbon X's, which are kind of a more recent model. But both those shoes I just love for everyday day-to-day running.
Definitely agree with you. The kind of Carbon X. I do a lot of my stuff in the Cliftons, but I found myself putting the Carbon X on a little bit more recently, just because it's just it is fun having that bit of extra propulsion in the stride now and again, and it means you just run that a little bit quicker, so you're still working just as hard, but the kilometers are flying by. It's good fun. And what about you, Rachel? What's your kind of go-to shoes on a day-to-day basis?
So I have three: the Challenger ATR, the Speedgo, and the Clifton. So I live on Salisbury Plain, basically, so it's very different, like, all year round. So it could be like really dry and dusty, or it could be really wet and muddy and gloppy and sticky. But I got my first pair of Challenger ATRs 4 weeks before my first 100-mile ultra. So my heart kind of reaches out to them. I tend to go for those for trail, and even like the coastal paths. They handle the coastal paths really well. The Challenger ATR. The Clifton is just, I love the Clifton, and I even wear that on the gravel, you know, mostly on the treadmill, or if I'm just going out round where I live. But on the dry gravel, I will even wear it on those. You
guys have given up a lot of time, so it's been awesome. Thank you. I think we put some good tips down, but maybe if you both, I know putting you on the spot now, but if you had like maybe one or two tips just for anyone, or maybe just round off points to the conversation for anyone that's looking to run further, what would they be for you guys? Andy?
I think just enjoy what you're doing, enjoy the challenge of it all, try to keep things interesting. Let's say, kind of, if you can get involved with other kind of training groups, other people who have got kind of similar type goals, then that's fantastic. If you're able to get a coach, that helps as well. But just try and enjoy the process, and when you kind of reach that end goal, then then it makes it all worthwhile.
Excellent. Rachel?
I've advised quite a few people to actually go and volunteer at these races, just so they can see, because it's quite easy for people to like feel super overwhelmed, and you run ultra marathons, you're like really fit and you train loads, and it's such an eye-opening thing to actually go and volunteer and be at these races, to see the diversity of people, and also do some runs without your watch, just go outside and spend just time walking, running, and just having that bigger goal in mind.
Yeah, great points. Yeah, just believe in yourself. There's always more there to give than we think. As these races get longer, it might look crazy on paper. It probably is for some of these longer ultras. For myself, even having run like UTMB 100 miler with 10,000 meters of vertical, it's crazy. It's an insane race, and I'd be nervous if I was on the. I'd be nervous if I was on the start line for it tomorrow. And I think that's a great feeling for us all to have, no matter what our challenge or what our long race is to us. Just believe in yourself, and just slow down if you need to, hike the hills if you need to, and just keep eating, and just enjoy it. So brilliant conversation, guys. Hope to catch up with you both in person soon. So next up, we're going to have some insight from HOKA ONE ONE, one of their technical reps, Matt. I've been lucky to work with this brand for a few years now, and the shoes are definitely suited to running further. So let's get into the conversation with Matt and see what he has to say about them. Hey Matt, how's it going?
Not bad, thanks, Harry. How are you?
Yeah, really good. I hear you're making a little trip to Scotland next week.
Yeah, headed up to Scotland, to the Highlands, visit some family and get as much running in as possible is the plan. Hopefully the weather holds out.
Fantastic. So you're a tech rep from HOKA in the conversation.
Yep.
So I've been talking with Andrew, I've been talking with Rachel about running further and what it means to be an endurance runner and how we can take those steps forward. I'd love to get some insight on HOKA from you as a brand. What do you feel? HOKA is obviously a new brand in the world of kind of running. In a sense, it's been around for a while now, but it's still very new. Why do you think HOKA has kind of taken this kind of step by step, strength to strength over the recent years? Can you give us a little bit of idea around that?
I think the main thing with us as a brand, and like I say, we're super young. We started 2009 really, so only just over 10 years. I think the main thing that has sort of seen us make such big strides in the running industry so quickly is that we're not afraid to be different. The company was founded on principles that were very, very radically different to what every other brand was doing at the time when it came to running shoes. So when the initial kind of ideas for HOKA were being sort of formed in the minds of our two founders, two French runners called Jean-Luc and Nico, the industry was in kind of, I don't know if you remember, but minimalism was like the buzzword at the time. And books like Born to Run had come out, and everyone was sort of really buying into the idea of shoes are bad, and most of the brands were kind of stack heights in the shoes, so the level of cushioning had become a lot lower. The drops in shoes had started to go down, and Jean-Luc and Nico had this idea that, well, what if maybe we approach the idea of how to make a running shoe from a problem-solving point of view? And the initial idea that they had was, well, let's make a shoe that makes downhill running on the trails as easy on the body as possible. And it kind of came up with, a few concepts and ideas they thought would work. And the main thing was the level of cushion. So obviously when you're running downhill, you want more impact protection, more cushioning, because the impact levels just go up so much when you're, through your knees and your hips, when you're really bombing downhill on a trail. So really high cushion shoe with a big midsole was kind of the initial idea. And it was so different to what was out on the market at the time. That, like I say, that minimalism thing was all the rage. So it was just the exact opposite of what everyone else was doing. And I think it is that kind of just not being afraid to do what we think is best that has really sort of stood us in a really, good stead in terms of where we are. And I think people can appreciate that. I think if they go into a running shop and they see something that's a bit different, and especially if someone can explain why it's different and why it works, people were prepared to give it a go. So
No, definitely.
yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some of those kind of early prototypes and pictures of the kind of early shoes, and it's amazing to think, like you were saying then, you know, when the running world was doing one very different thing, and then HOKA had this amazing idea that they kind of, like you say, they stuck to their guns, and that was the idea. They knew that would work on the mountains, especially, you know, given that you would just want to fly down those hills. And it's amazing to imagine just how much out of the box they were really thinking at the time, and how much of an impact that's made on the running world and all kind of formats.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it. We notice it every day at work with, if you look at running shoes back then to how they are now, a lot of the ideas that Jean-Luc and Nico came up with to start with, they're in pretty much every brand's shoes these days. You know, if you look at the trends within running shoes, cushioning levels have gone up, cushioning materials have advanced massively, and we're really the brand that kicked all that off. So we kind of just hold true to that, and we know how we want to make shoes, how we want to approach footwear design, and we really do stick to it. That's then blossomed onto, well, let's make the shoes for road, let's make them for the gym, for fitness, for trail racing, you know, short, long, whatever. We've really kind of expanded. The initial ideas that we put into those first prototypes have worked well in every area of running, and have allowed us to just expand the range to sort of fill every niche within running.
I think it's I think that's all great points. And I remember when I first got my first pair of HOKAs were the Clifton ones, so quite some years ago now. And I remember hearing, you know, a little bit about them at the time, and it was a very different shoe to everything else. And compared to what we were used to having, you know, picking up in a shoe store, it looked very different. But I remember as soon as I got it on my feet, I just couldn't believe that kind of sensation of ride. And I think a preconception that I know I had as well as a runner, who maybe had, you know, maybe been a bit kind of swayed by the minimalist running styles a little bit, and maybe got away with it a bit more than maybe newer runners might have, because I'd come from, you know, running in track spikes and cross-country spikes a lot of the time when I was younger. Just picking the shoe up and just how light it was. I think, you know, a lot of people thought, the HOKAs, they just look super heavy and it's not going to feel good on the feet. But it's amazing, the technology. And then obviously that's just increased as the years have gone by. It's just got better and better.
It is ridiculous when you look at the shoe and then you try it on your feet, the difference in what your mind perceives the shoe is going to feel like and what it actually feels like.
And something that HOKA brought out this year, something a bit different, I guess, was the Clifton Edge. You know, can you talk a little bit about that for a second? Yeah,
so that's been a big shoe for us this year. It was kind of the talking about the Clifton Edge. I feel like you have to also talk about our regular Clifton as well, because the two sort of compare quite favourably, I think. But the Clifton, you mentioned it earlier, Clifton One, that's been a shoe that's been in our lineup for years. It's our best-selling shoe in the UK, the Clifton, and it's kind of what we see as like our everyday mileage road trainer. So if you were training for your marathon, say, the Clifton is what you would do the bulk of your training in. It's your bread and butter shoe. And we kind of thought there's a bit of a gap in the market for basically a more premium, more plush kind of more kind of top of the line version of that shoe, and that's where the Clifton Edge comes in. We often like to talk when we do training of our kind of glide category is our kind of main road running kind of soft cushioned neutral and supportive shoes all fit into this category called glide. So within glide we talk of them almost like a family, and you've sort of got 4 shoes in that family. You've got the Rincon, which I like to think of as like the younger speedy little brother. You've got the Clifton, who's kind of like the middle of the road, decent at everything, you know, good at most things. Anything you want to throw at him, he's going to do a good job. And then you've got the Clifton Edge, which is kind of like the star child. You know, he's the one that's like got all the medals, everything. He's the one that, you know, he's the star of the family, and that's kind of how we see it. So all of our best technology goes into the Clifton. So we developed a new midsole foam specifically for that shoe that's 15% lighter than anything we've done before, but just as soft and just as durable. So it's that really soft and nice cushion feel that people know and love with our shoes. But it's lighter than ever before. We've sort of pioneered new upper material technologies as well, which just mean that the upper on the shoe it locks the foot in, but there's no external pieces really added onto the outside to give you that structure and durability. It's all pretty much one piece, so it feels almost like a sock. And then one thing we've done is extended the heel out at the back of the shoe. I can actually show you, so I have got one here.
Great.
Sorry, here we go. We've really extended the heel out at the back of the shoe to basically just, essentially it means that cushioning when you're landing as a runner, it just kicks in even earlier and it just feels even smoother as you roll from heel to toe. So you've probably tried this shoe on for your own running.
Yeah, so like, so although I'm a trail runner, I do a lot of my running on the roads, and the standard Clifton's always been my kind of go-to with that. Like you say, a really good kind of versatile daily trainer. But yeah, I've been taking the Clifton Edge out on some kind of hilly like roads in the lanes, and really enjoy when I'm just kind of bombing down those steep hills. Just feeling that sensation, like you're saying, then just rolling through the stride really nicely off that kind of extended heel. And going back to what you said about the upper as well, it's just the most comfortable shoe I think I've ever put on my feet. And I'm not too fussy with that, but you really tell that there's been a lot of engineering and a lot of kind of technology going into the shoe, and it's really exciting just to see the brand continue to kind of innovate in those areas. So you mentioned the Clifton 7, so the Clifton 7's just come out. Could you talk a little bit about that for a second? You know, what kind of changes are there from maybe the Clifton 6 to the 7? And
so luckily I've got one here to talk about. So it's not massive changes from Clifton 6 to Clifton 7. Largely the Clifton 6 was really well received. Runners loved the cushioning and protection that it offered. So kind of the bottom unit of the shoe, the bottom half of the shoe, cushioning and the outsole has stayed exactly the same. It's still very soft, very, very light, very protective, and kind of has that perfect feel and balance for kind of your everyday mileage on the roads. What we've really changed is the upper. So we've basically taken a lot of the good things that worked in the Clifton Edge, and we've tried to sort of implement them in the Clifton 7. The upper material is very similar. It's very breathable, very soft. There's not much in the way of seams or kind of overlays on it, so it's very sock-like. It isn't quite as nice as the upper on the Clifton Edge because it is a slightly cheaper shoe, but it does a really good job of holding the foot in place nice and securely within the shoe, but also providing that breathability and softness, which is key. And then we've also, same as Clifton Edge, got this kind of new thin heel on the back. We used to have a pull tab on the old Clifton 6, but we've got rid of that, and we call this the intuitive heel pull tab now. So essentially, when you get the shoe on, it's easier just to pull on that to lock your heel in, and then it's basically designed to stay out of the way of the Achilles. So essentially, this is going to offer an improved fit at the back of the shoe over the standard heel pull tab, and that's pretty much it, to be honest. I think the shoe, it's now 248 grams in a men's size 8, whereas it was 252 before, so it's a little bit lighter. But you know, every gram counts, I think. But yeah, if you like Clifton 6, you're really going to like Clifton 7 because, you know, cushioning and outsole stay the same. It's just a better fitting, more comfortable, more breathable upper. So
fantastic.
Clifton 7.
Super. Thanks for that. That's awesome. I haven't tried the 7 yet, so I look forward to that. I'm sure it'll be in my kind of shoe quiver, as you said, pretty soon. So I look forward to that. And getting out plenty of miles on the road with those. Excellent. Well, thanks for the input. It's been a really cool conversation.
No worries.
It's really invaluable to have that kind of tech analysis almost of the shoes and letting us all know what kind of shoes we could look out for. So thanks for joining us, and all the best with your trip to Scotland. Cheers.
Thanks a lot. My pleasure.
All right. So if the Clifton 7 sound good to you, make sure you check out the comments down below, enter the competition. I wish you guys all the best of luck with that, and I hope you get to enjoy some great miles in these shoes. Hope you guys really enjoyed the show today, being able to talk with some fantastic runners, and hopefully get lots of great pointers for you guys that you can implement into your running and help you on your journey to run further. My name's Harry Jones. I've really enjoyed being here for you. If you like this video, please hit that like button. Make sure you subscribe to Pro Direct Running, and check out the rest of the series that those guys are putting out for this. thank you for having me. And if you want to check out any of my videos, you can check me out on YouTube, Harry Runs, Instagram, or any of that stuff. And hope to see some of you guys there too. And yeah, write me some comments. It'd be great to hear from you. So all the best for your running, guys. Hope you've enjoyed the show, and take care.